Good day, collectors and viewers. Social Distance Warrior is back. And we're going to look at another original 96 figure today. Long-awaited return over here of this character, especially in action figure form, because it's been many, many years since he was produced. So let's hop right in and discuss the character we're going to talk about here. So a species here is Quarren. Our character in being featured here is Tessek. Tessek, of course, made his debut back in Return of the Jedi. So Return of the Jedi had us revisit Tatooine when our heroes faithfully went to save their fellow compadre and friend Han Solo from the clutches of Jabba the Hutt. And upon entering Jabba's palace, as an 8-year-old myself in the theater, I witnessed all these new aliens, stuff I've never seen before, and all I could think about is how much I'd love to have action figures of them to play with. So Kenner, of course, at the time who was producing the action figures, was paying attention, and they would make action figure representations of some of these characters and throw them and mix them in the line. And it's one of those things that I always loved about the original trilogy of Star Wars movies. Every single one had different aliens, there was different environments, different things going on in each of those movies that you could easily differentiate which movie you were talking about just based on the aliens. So there I was as an 8-year-old hopping into the store, and lo and behold, sitting in front of me were all these new characters from this movie called Return of the Jedi, and I was always wondering what goes on. And my sister actually happened to go to see the movie before me, prior to, she was the lucky one with her school, with her class, and I used to torture her and ask her to tell me about the movie. What happens when they go to see Jabba the Hutt and they see Han Solo? Who are all those aliens and who are all these characters? And I just listened intently as she'd tell me about them, awaiting my chance to be able to see the movie. Well, Tessek, of course, would get his fame in action figure form in 1983. In part of Wave 1 of the Return of the Jedi line, that's this character over here. Let's bring him to the forefront. And you can just have a look over here and see the character. We're looking now at 40 plus years. We're at 42 years and going with this character. And you have a look at him here in action figure form, and he stands up pretty well. The sculpting is really well done. It's amazing. Factoring in, Kenner, of course, was evolving and getting better with year by year. They started back in, 77, 78, making these action figures, and here they are now in 1983, and they got this stuff down, packed in form, and they can basically give certain characters cloth goods like this one has over here. He's got a nice little cloth cape that runs all the way around. It's not removable. It's stuck around. I mean, you could remove it if you wanted to take it apart or rip it, but in this case I didn't. This is not my original figure. I never actually had the original one as a kid. As I got older, more into my adulthood, I was quite able to go back and acquire some of these ones. So let's have a look at the head sculpt on Tessek. Over here again, at the time he was known as Squid Head, and he was Squid Head for many, many years. And this is how we called him as a kid, and I was always fascinated with the look over here. And you can see his dark eyes. They are like a darker blue. They don't really represent how he looks. I think his eyes are more of a lighter blue, but that's what they could do at the time. You can see he's got two little tusks here in the front, and then he's got his tentacles sticking out over here. And he's just an awesome looking alien that you had to have if you were a kid. As far as articulation, 5 points of articulation on these characters here. So you can turn his head from side to side. Now, if we turn that head all the way around, you can just see how good the sculpting is on these original characters. And he's got these weird, saggy looking membranes over here in the back of his head. I always wondered, is that vulnerable? Is that his brain sticking out there? If I was just to hit him on the back of the head, would I be finishing him off? Could I defeat him? Or is that just showing how smart this character is? More of like a squid / octopus look to him for sure. As we pull the cape up over here, we can see underneath he's got a robe on. He's got his big belt on. That belt, of course, is kind of attached or sitting just over his cloth good skirt that he has over here, which is a different fabric as well. And you can see his arms. His arms are sculpted in a way where he can hold his blaster. Unfortunately, I don't have the weapon that he came with, but you can see his hands completely different from any other character, completely new sculpt. As far as articulation, there's no side-to-side movement on these characters here. The legs, he does have soft goods, so you can move them up if you wanted to, both of them, so you can have them sitting, which was a nice little play feature that you had with your characters. You can put them in your ships and your vehicles, and you can make your own adventures as you went along with these guys. So that's the look of the front of our character here, Tessek slash Squid Head. And then if we lift him up underneath here, we can see the little pegs he has on his feet. So you can stand them, put them in your play sets. Now, as far as Kenner branding, I'm sure it's somewhere up on his feet. I'm not going to lift his skirt all the way up there, the bottom part, but you can see his boots are sculpted on there as well. So there was some extra attention to detail put on these characters. And if we pull his nice cape or top part of his cloak here over, we can have a look at what he looks like fully realized there. And then we turn him over to the side. We can see what he looks like there. And then we just take one more look at him here from the back. And you can see that this particular representation or version that I have here is in pretty good shape. He's solid. He wasn't really played with. He's more of a display piece, and it's exactly what I wanted to have as my part of my collection as an adult. So that's what we got back in 1983, and that was the only version that we'd get of Tessek slash Squid Head. Actually, we're going to call him Squid Head because the name Tessek would come out later on. I'm not sure if that was as part of the West End Games role-playing game that came out in the late 80s slash early 90s, or if that just came out when Power of the Force 2 came out. But we get our next version of Tessek slash Squid Head in the Power of the Jedi line. So that was all the way up in 2001. So we wouldn't have a figure for many, many years. And it was a welcome addition for all of us that did get back into collecting. And that's this guy over here. And you can just see how far they've come with the character. Little things that always bugged me about this line, the Power of the Force 2 line slash Power of the Jedi line, is that they use these, sculpted plastic parts instead of giving them a fabric robe, which really restricts how you can use them. But, the one good side or the one good aspect of it is this character basically just stands in the background. You never really see him sitting. So as far as placing him in there, I don't even have to have a stand. I can just put him down. I can stand him in the background of Jabba's palace and he's going to fit right in. Never have to worry about him falling over. So, at the time, it did definitely suit it. I was very excited. If we have a look at the head sculpt, look how far we've come with the head sculpt. You can see he does have the nice lighter blue eyes now. He's got the little tusk. It almost looks like a tongue sticking out at us there. You can see the front part of his tentacles are a lot thinner, sculpted a lot better. You can see his head has some weathering on it there at the top when you're looking at it. There's wrinkles on there. It's an amazing sculpt for 2001. We're going back a number of years. We're still not using any kind of face scan technology. This is all sculpt work at the time. And then we turn him over to the back and you can see he's got those two membranes sticking down at the back there. And the detail is really, really good. The weathering is very amazing on the character. Now, the cape is non-removable. So if you try to take this thing apart, you're going to break it. It comes together right at the front there. Very, very small connection, but holds on there very solid. As far as articulation, you can move his head side to side. Now, I technically probably could turn him at the waist in there, but he's got this big robe over. You can't really test it or check it out. And you're not really going to want to because that cape kind of really restricts of what you can do with the character. So as far as arm articulation, you can move his arms up. You can see they did the little indents on the tips of his fingers over here. There's a lot of attention to detail. There's nice blue wrappings across the side here of his arm as well. To really add to that detail that they've done with the character. They looked at more still shots. So that's one arm. The other arm's got a swivel right at the elbow. So basically you're just pulling that arm out to the side and you can't put the arm straight down. So you're kind of restricted in what you can do with this character. And that's the only arm that can hold any kind of a weapon. You can see if we look in close at it, there's a sculpt there where you can put something in his hand there, but it's attached together. So that's where his weapon would go. He does have a weapon. The weapon is in the holster. We're going to have a look at that in a second. So they have sculpted the bottom part of his robe here with an opening to get to that weapon. If we pull that opening open, we can see he does have legs. He does have boots on the inside there as well. So there is a sculpting. That holster is mounted right onto his leg there, onto his left leg. So it's not removable. It's stuck on there. And as far as articulation, you can move the legs up. But again, you can only do so much with this character unless you're to cut off that robe because you can't really position him any other way than have him standing this way here. So you can see the nice sculpting on his middle part here, this belt or sash or whatnot that goes right up under his cape, recreating that nice effect that he has in the movie. And it's a nice shiny goldish color. You can see the paint job stands up very well for a figure that was done so many years ago. There's nice little creases and waves done into the robe. So if I turn him around to the back, you can see the nice little creasing done in the back. So one thing that was really well in these robes or cloaks is the sculpt work. It's not just a flat cloak going into the back. If you had him turned to the side here, you know, it really looks like he does have a robe on or a cloak on, and it's hanging down, it's draping down, and it's got some nice creases to it. So lots of attention and detail put into that. So that's what Tessek looks like from the front. And then if we lift him up underneath here, that's what he looks like underneath. He does have the two little foot pegs in there. And on this one, we can actually read Hasbro China on one foot. The other one says 2000 Lucasfilm Limited. So again, they went into production and came out in 2001. As far as that blaster, I'm going to take that out for you. Bear with me here just for a second, and we're going to have a look at it. So let's just put Tessek down for a moment. You can see he's got a unique gun that he comes with here. Fits right into his holster. Now I always like that as well. I like that some of the characters have their own unique guns. They're not all just generic like a lot of the original Kenner figures came with. But that's Tessek's gun. That's what he comes with, and we can always place that gun in his hand. So if you were curious what this figure looks like with the weapon in his hand because you wanted to purchase him, there you go. You can have him in an action pose there, like he's ready to attack Luke Skywalker when he barged into Jabba's palace, or maybe Boushh when Chewbacca when they came in. Or you can have his arm to the side here, or put a drink in his hand, and you can have him just positioned standing there. So that's Tessek there from the front. Let's turn him to the side, see what he looks like. And then let's turn him around to the back so you can take a nice look at him from the rear side as well. Backside with his cape on. So that's what we got in 2001. Tessek, let's put him down. Now we're going to have to fast forward a number of years. So we go through this whole era of finishing off the prequels. Then we go into the Clone Wars. And then Lucasfilm, George Lucas sells Lucas to Disney. Disney acquires Star Wars. When they started that vintage collection line in 2010, I was really hopeful that we'd get a new version of Tessek. I wanted to see all the original characters released. Unfortunately, he didn't. But as the line came back in 2019, we were a little more vocal of the characters we wanted Hasbro to make. So we'd finally get our dreams realized in 2023. As part of the vintage collection, Hasbro would release and unveil a Jabba's Court Denizen 4-pack. And Tessek was one of the new characters in that set. It was a Hasbro Pulse exclusive, and we'd finally get, you know, our definitive ultimate vintage collection version of Tessek. And that is this fabulous character over here. And what do we have that we can notice that's different right off the bat here? Well, right off the bat, they've given us cloth goods. So we haven't had that with this character yet, and we finally have him with cloth goods. He's going to be fully articulated. I'm just going to take him off of his stand. One thing with these characters is the hole pegs, because they give them so many articulation points with the rocker ankles. It's very difficult for them to give proper holes or indents into the feet to put them on stand. So I really got to use sticky tack, or you really got to be creative on how you're positioning these guys. Let's have a look at his head up really close. Our vintage collection Tessek here, and you can see how far we've come. The weathering's done really well in the character. You can see the eyes are more of a darker blue, or more reminiscent of the original Kenner figure. They're not as light as the Power of the Jedi one was, which was basically based on a still picture that they had, not really the movie accurate one. This is more of a movie accurate one. If you had him standing in Jabba's palace, you probably wouldn't notice his eyes are bright unless you shined a light on him. So I can understand why they did that. As far as articulation on that head, it is on a ball joint, so you can move that back and forth. It's unique to him. He have some articulation to go up, some articulation to go down. If we take a look at his head there from the side, we can see the sculpt work that was done on it. And then, of course, if we turn it around to the back, we can see he's got those two membranes there on the back as well. Nicely detailed and nicely weathered. And you can even see the back of his shoulder part here, back of his neck, detailed as well under his robe. So as far as articulation on the character himself, let's just remove his blaster to have a look at it. So blaster, let's put him down for 1 sec. Similar to the one that we saw in the Power of the Jedi line there. Let's bring it up there just so we can have a look at it. You can see the detail on that blaster, unique again to Tessek. He does not have a holster like that original character did from 2001. So he's either going to have to hold that blaster or hold a cup, but that's not too bad either. I'd sooner have a more realistic version of him. As far as articulation, does have this cloth goods cape. If you wanted to remove it, again, you can now, because you can either remove his head or you can just try to slip that over without damaging it. It's a nice thin fabric material. He does have articulation, ball joints there at the shoulders, so you can fully articulate him there. He does have it at his elbow. And of course, he has it in his hands as well. And there is some articulation there too to bend them right at the hand. You have some slight movement there. If you want to position him with a cup or with his blaster in an action pose, you can do so. They've sculpted that nice gold belt on here as well. I always like that belt from the Power of the Jedi one a little bit better. It's a little bit more of a shiny gold, but I'm sure this one's a little more accurate of the vintage collection to what he looked like in the movie. Going down past that, he does have soft, good robes that come all the way down here. So you can still sit him if we lift those robes up just so we can see underneath. He does have pants and pockets. He's probably sharing legs from another character that we've seen before, but you can see he has full articulation. Ball joints here at the waist, so you can fully articulate him, sit him. He's got that slit there at the thigh, so you can turn him side to side. His knees are articulated. You can bend his knees. And as we work our way down here, he does have that same articulation here at the ankle. And of course, he's got that famous rocker ankle that we all know and love. So you can have him in an action pose, standing, whether he's in your Jabba's palace or whether he's on the sail barge or wherever you have him positioned. You can have Tessek in many, many different poses. So let's put his arms down there just so we can have a look at him from the front. Fix his robe. So there's Tessek from the front there. If we lift him up underneath here, we can see he does have his foot pegs. And you see what I'm talking about with the holes or indents on the bottom of the feet? They're next to invisible. There's nothing there. Let's see if I can work out a date on the bottom. So Hasbro China on that foot, on this one over here. Lucasfilm Limited, and I can't really make out a date. It's very tiny, but take my word for it, it did come out in 2023. Okay, so one more look at the front, one look at the side, and then we turn around to the back. You can see what he looks like with his robe there on the back as well. So that's the ultimate version of Tessek that we got in our vintage collection line. Again, he's helping us get to that point of trying to complete that original 96, which we seemed to be far, far off of in previous times. All right, so I don't want to finish off the review until we look at a couple more Quarren versions of this character that we've got in the Star Wars 3 3/4 inch line. We'd get another version of not Tessek himself, but his species in 2008 as part of the Legacy Collection. So we got a Quarren soldier. That's this guy over here. And that one's based on that original Clone Wars cartoon where we had the Mon Calamari and their, arch nemesis Quarren going to battle, and we see Kit Fisto and we see these Quarren soldiers or whatnot swimming through the water, and they're fighting with these big giant spears or tridents. And this figure is amazing. The likeness on here is really good. Let's just take his weapon there out of the hand so we can just show you what he looks like. Articulation wise, where we were with the line, we were doing a lot of expanded universe figures at this time. You can see this guy is very muscular. He's like a gladiator, a version of a Quarren character, and you can see his eyes are painted a bright blue. He's using a newer head sculpt as well. The head sculpt is similar, if you're wondering, to the Power of the Jedi character, but you can see that it is smaller. It's not exactly the same one, but the tusks look similar. Some of the stuff looks like it might have been used as a reference point if we turn it around to the back, but it is a smaller version, so it's probably a newer sculpt. That is on a ball joint, so you can have a lot more articulation with this one. I like that. You can have his head up if you have him swimming, going into battle. You can have his head coming down as well. As far as the shoulders, you don't have a ball joint there at the shoulders. You have full articulation for this muscular monster over here. You can bend him there at the elbow, or articulation, as well as the hands. So it's a really neat character. That happens on both hands. He does have cloth goods going down to the bottom under his belt there. You can turn him side to side. Okay, down beneath here, he does have a holster. And you can see in the holster, he does have his own little weapon. It's like a knife. This is pretty neat. It's like a dagger. You can see it's a jagged edge on the front like Rambo's. And then on the back, it's like a shell handle. So you can see he's an underwater species. That's a nice little touch. And there's a holster for that just underneath there with his nice little belt around his leg. Moving down, articulation wise, at the thigh you can just lift his leg up, but you can see here at the bottom no articulation at the knees. And you can turn him here at the ankle, and there is articulation here if you want to put him in a swimming pose. So there's a nice little added touch on this character as well. So a nice little hidden feature. You won't really see that holster unless you were to lift up that skirt. So keep in mind if you are to get this character, I don't think it even shows it in the packaging. It's a nice little hidden feature or Easter egg on the Quarren soldier. So let's take another look at him from the front. There he is. And underneath, let's go and see his foot pegs. He does have his foot pegs there on the bottom. Let's have a see gander if we can read any information. So Hasbro, China on one foot, and then the other foot says 2009 Lucasfilm Limited. So that's the stamping there on the bottom. We turn him to the side. That's what he looks like from the side. And then one more look here at the back, and you can see the nice muscle detail and little ripples. You can see his spine there on the back. So it's a really good, cool looking character that you can add part of your collection. We'll put his trident back in his hand and stand him back up. Now we have one more character to show you. So also 1 year later in 2009, we get Legacy Collection. We have these different comic packs, and we get the comic pack of Rebel pilots, also from Expanded Universe. Hasbro is really going into the Expanded Universe timelines now because we were finished with the movies. Revenge of the Sith was 4 years past already. And we get a comic 2-pack with a Mon Calamari character named Ibtisam, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. And that's our Rebel pilot over here. Now, this is more of a Kit Bash figure, but it's an awesome little addition to your Rebel pilot set. If you weren't aware or you didn't know this figure existed, he does, and he's a really neat looking character. He's got his own hands sculpted on there, so they have maintained, you know, having that sculpt with the 3 fingers. You can see the brand new head on there. So he's got a brand new helmet. The head, I believe, is a resculpt of the Quarren soldier, but this one definitely has a brand new helmet. And yes, the helmet is removable. We're going to look at that in 1 second. So you just have a look at that nice detail and definition on the helmet, all the little paint and decals on there, the nice little visor in the front. And you can see what it looks like with that on. And then we can remove that helmet as well. Comes off. It sits on there nice and snug, so you don't have to worry about it popping off very easily. Just going to show you that up close just so you can see what it looks like on the inside. And this is exclusive and of course fits only on this character, because how else are you going to get a regular helmet on that giant head with the membranes? So here's what he looks like without the helmet on. And they've painted his face. His eyes are more of a generic look. He's got pupils. He doesn't have the solid eyes in there. He's got little bags under his eyes as well. So he's a little, Ibtisam's a little battle worn over here. So you can see the head sculpt on there. If I was to bring the Quarren soldier up close, we can probably see they're very similar in sculpt. They've done a much better paint job on the little tusks in the front there, but very similar otherwise to that character. And of course they were, because a lot of the Expanded Universe comic pack characters were Kit Bash. The whole bottom part of the body here is from an X-Wing pilot, but the rest of the articulation there is a standard X-Wing pilot. He does have full articulation, a nice little tube running, ball joints here at the shoulders. You can turn him here at the elbows. You can turn him a little bit here at the wrist as well. He's got his blaster in hand, and of course down here as well you can articulate his knees, his ankles, because it's based on that X-Wing Luke that we've gotten as part of that collection as well in the past. And that's what he looks like in full form there. Underneath he does have his little foot pegs, and we turn him to the side. We can see what our X-Wing pilot Quarren looks like, and then from the back. And let's just position him here one more time with his helmet on so we can show you what he looks like when he's part of the Rebel Alliance. And what was interesting in the 2-pack that he was in, he actually came with a Mon Calamari pilot, a blue-skinned Mon Calamari pilot. I think his name was Nurin Vakil, something like that. And they're, again, species are sworn enemies, but when it comes to defending the rebellion against the Empire, they're able to set their differences aside. And that's what we got in 2009. Now, one more mention before I finish off, since I've mentioned all the other Corrin that are on here. I almost forgot to bring up one more outstanding character that they did make in 2009. That was part of a multi-pack. I think it was an Entertainment Earth exclusive called Joker Squad. So it was a bunch of rogue mercenaries that were dressed in stormtrooper attire. We'll do a review on them at some point. But they actually came with Lord Malaval. So he was a Sith Lord. Darth Malaval, we called him Lord Malaval. And we'll throw a picture up on the screen. Now again, he's another Corrin character. This one's really neat. He's got that same tattoo and paint look like Darth Maul does. Highly sought after figure. I actually don't have the figure. Otherwise I'd bring him up over here as well. But I do want to mention that they were really exploring that expanded universe. And I love those expanded universe figures. Different territory we can get into and explore, and have all these different versions of characters on your shelf that really immerse that world that you have of world building with your characters and figures, and gives you all these different aliens and different looks on the aliens. And he's another mention that came out in 2009. So that brings us to the end of our review for Tessek. I hope you've enjoyed the review. Again, I thank you if you've stuck around this long. I love making these videos when I can. Again, throwing some history on there. Maybe I threw up some information or made you decide to purchase a character that you didn't want to, or didn't know existed, or wanted to know if you wanted to have in the past. And if you do like what you're seeing, of course, like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video. Take care.